Hello, everyone. My name is Gilbert Leos, and I am the EL Civic Specialist at Pasadena City College's Non-Credit Division. Before I begin, I would like to thank Lynn Robinson for the opportunity to share with you this presentation, as well as Fabiola Epperly from the Sweetwater Union High School District for providing me the information that led to today's topic, which is using TE's third-party import wizard to upload EL Civic's results. This presentation is broken down into 6 parts. Part 1, why upload EL Civic's results using the TE's third-party import wizard? Part 2, software used. Part 3, requirements. Part 4, the CSV file. Part 5, preparing to import. Part 6, import the CSV file. So why upload EL Civic's results using the TE's third-party import wizard? Well, it's a time saver. EL Civic's results can be populated in bulk rather than entering the data into individual records, which tends to be time-consuming if you have 100, 1,000, or even 2,000 records to deal with. It also protects your hands, wrists, and arms from unnecessary additional mouse movement and clicks. So for those of you trying to avoid carpal tunnel, this is one way of doing it. As far as the software that we use in dealing with the EL Civic's results, we're typically dealing with the TOPS Pro Enterprise Database, and I've put a link in there to show you how to download and install that onto your computer. We're also going to be working with the spreadsheets, and in this case, Microsoft Excel. You can also use a text editor to work with the different files in order to view them and edit them. And in this case, for those of you on Windows, it will be the default Notepad. And there are other, if you're using another operating system, you can use whatever default text editor you have. So what are the requirements in order for us to upload our EL Civic's results to TE? Well, 1, your co-apps need to be registered in TE. 2, you need to have access to the third-party import wizard. 3, you need the vendor code. And 4, you need access to upload the test data test CSV file. So if you do not upload your co-apps, you will get an error in terms of not being able to upload your data. And so you want to avoid this at all costs. Actually, you want to avoid any error at all costs. And so in order to take care of this issue, you're going to need to talk to the person who manages TE at your agency so that they can register the proper co-app for the classes that you need them for. So make sure you do that. And the process I've given in this presentation, there's a link to the actual how to do it. And so feel free to go to that site and get that information. So that way your manager can actually get that taken care of for you. Now, you also need, as I mentioned, you need access to the third-party import wizard, which means that if you go up to Tools and you click and you see the third-party wizard and it's grayed out, that means you don't have access. And so you need to get access. And when you do get access, it will be in black. And so the person that takes care of this will be that person that manages TE on your site. So make sure that you talk to that person, let them know that you need access for your account. Now this person can make all the accounts that are working with EL Civics in terms of uploading the results, have that ability. So make sure you talk to them. The vendor code. This is one that took me a while to find out, really. The vendor code is a 4-character alphanumeric code, which is supplied by CASAS to an agency. Now this can be, because it's alphanumeric, it can be Y3CA, it can be KRV7, and in the case of the simulation server, it's RHAS. And so it is needed in order to upload data to TOPS. If you use the incorrect code, you will get an error and it will not allow you to upload any of your results to TOPS. However, if you attempt to do it without a code, it'll also give you an error. So make sure that you have that code. If you are already uploading other CSV files, such as maybe class data, student demographics data, you can actually take a look in those CSV files, and inside of them, on the very first field, or the very first value for that first field, that's the actual code. Typically it's about 4 characters. So definitely look at your CSV files if you do have those, and you'll have that code there. And if you're unable to locate that vendor code, contact CASAS tech support, and they will help you get that code. And so I provided the email for CASAS tech support, which is techsupport@casas.org, and their phone number is 800-255-1036, and it's option 2 to get a hold of them. And they're available Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time, that is. So you also need to have access to upload the test data, test CSV file. If you don't have that ability, you cannot upload these ELCs. You cannot upload the data to TE. In this case, CASAS tech support are the people that grant this ability to your agency. And so in my experience, what they had me do is actually they required us to submit a sample file, so that they, I believe, knew what we were doing, and once provided, we were given access to do so. So make sure that you do talk to CASAS tech support, and they will be more than willing to help you out with that. Just a note, because you can upload other CSV files, such as maybe demographics, class data, entry data, doesn't mean that you can upload the test CSV file. Each one of those are different CSV types, and actually TE requires that each one has its own specific permission. So make sure you talk to CASAS and double check with them to see if you do have permission to do so for the test CSV file, because just because you can do one, you can't necessarily do the other. So again, the requirements are: make sure that you have your co-apps registered on TE. Also, make sure you have access to TE's third-party import wizard. Make sure you have the vendor code, very essential. Otherwise, no vendor code, you cannot upload your data. And 4, make sure you have access to upload that test CSV file, meaning that CASAS has given you that permission to upload that specific file type. So let's talk about the CSV file. Let me give you just a kind of a basic definition, and then we'll go into what type of software can edit and view the CSV file, as well as take a look at the test data, test CSV file itself. So by definition, CSV, the acronym, stands for comma separated values, okay? The CSV file is a plain text file with values of fields separated by a comma. Each line in the file is a different record, as you can see from the image here. You have different rows of records, and you have different columns separated by a comma. Each value in that comma, between the commas, is a specific field. And typically, you'll see with CSV files, they are saved with the extension of .csv. Now, some of you may have noticed on your computers that when you see a CSV file, you'll notice a nice little Microsoft Excel icon. Just because it has the icon does not mean that it is an Excel file. CSV files are not Microsoft Excel files or spreadsheets. Okay, so remember, it is a plain text. So you can open this up in a text editor. Speaking of the text editor, again, I typically use Notepad, and you can actually, with Notepad, open the file up, make any changes you like, and save the file as is. Okay. So when you open up that CSV file in Notepad, you can, if you really wanted to, you can actually write out everything you want on Notepad and not have to worry about using Excel. It's very tedious and time consuming, more so probably than clicking away, but it is doable. However, you want to make sure that you're able to, if you do so, have the correct number of fields inside that CSV file. Very essential. So typically we use Notepad for initial viewing of the CSV file so that we can see what it looks like in case something seems off before we import it into Excel. Now, speaking of Excel, since it's a spreadsheet program, you can view and edit and save CSV files inside of there. However, when it comes to saving CSV files in Excel, you cannot save them with double quotations. Inside the third-party manual, there is a mention, they mention that it is suggested that you use the double quotations in the event that there is a comma within the field value. And so this is to kind of avoid that. But in this case, working with ELC data, you don't have any comma values within the field, so this will not be an issue for you. So you're more than free to use Microsoft Excel in terms of preparing your data for submission. Again, the only issue with Excel in terms of opening up CSV files is that when Excel opens it up, it typically changes the contents, the values of that CSV file to match whatever Excel's default cell settings are. Typically, it's a general setting, and what you'll lose is with the files are and the values is the preceding zeros. You'll typically see those kind of go away. Numbers are now treated as numbers; they're not treated as text. And so you may see some computations, some calculations, things change around. So in order to avoid that, you kind of want to make sure that when you open it up, you kind of get it so where it's viewable as a text. And in some cases, that's not possible with Excel. But generally speaking, the best way to look at a CSV file without manipulating any of the data inside of it is through a text editor. So let's talk about the test CSV file. The information regarding it is inside of TOPS Pro Enterprise Data Exchange Specifications 3.x, exchanging data with third-party attendance and other information systems. In this case, I'm referring to version 1.4, which was published in July of 2020. I'm providing you a link here so you can go and get yourself a copy. Very essential for those of you who are working with data. Definitely please take a look at this document. I can't stress enough how important it is to understand it, especially since it talks about fields from other types of CSV files. So whenever you get a chance, do look it over. It's very, very helpful. The only thing I would ask is that of CASAS is that whenever they do update it to let us know, because I really would like to know any changes to it. So on pages 20 and 21 of the third-party manual, you'll notice that the test data test file, CSV file, contains 19 unique fields. 7 are going to be required and 2 are needed. So the required fields are as 1, the first field is the vendor code. So that's the one we talked about earlier, the 4-character alphanumeric field. So you need this. Without this, you will not be able to upload your data. The second field is the state code. And TE uses the standard US Postal State abbreviation. In case of California, we're going to be using CA. If you're using it for a different state, it will be whatever you use for your state in terms of your postal code postal abbreviation. The third field is also used. It's the agency ID, and this is as recorded in TE, and this field is also alphanumeric. The same thing with field number 4, which is the site ID, and that is as recorded in TE, and also alphanumeric. And the student ID, so that you can record each student, that's also required, and it is also an alphanumeric field. So these 3 additional fields you must have in order to upload your data. Field number 6 is the assessment date. And this date is formatted into 8 digits. So for example, July 1st, 2016 would be written 07/01/2016. Now, as you notice, there is a preceding 0. One of the things that will happen when you import, when you actually look at the CSV file inside of Excel, is that you will see that preceding 0 disappear. So this is why you want to make sure that you look at your data first in a text editor. And if you do decide to open it up inside of Excel, to make sure that you have a spare copy of that file in the event anything gets changed. So make sure you have that. And also field number 7, the assessment form code. The assessment form code pertains to the test record. So for example, if I'm going to upload information regarding COAP 46.7, because that's what my students were tested on and I have the results, I would use the form code 467C. And C in this case, as far as I've been told, stands for civics. So make sure you have that noted down. Now the needed fields are field number 15, which is test 1. And this is used for pass and fail only tests like COAPs. And so the accepted values are 000 for failed and 999 for passed. So if your student passed, you're going to type 999 into that field. If they didn't, you're going to type 000. Okay. When you do this, and I will discuss this really soon, you will want to make sure that that 000 doesn't disappear, especially if you're using Excel. You want to make sure that that field is a text field so that that 000 persists. And the final needed field is 19. It's the conservative estimate field. And the only reason why it's needed is just to ensure that all 19 fields are present in the CSV file. What I have found is that when I do not put anything in that last field, I end up with 18 fields rather than 19. And so this is one way to ensure that I get a 19 fields and do not get an error from TOPS when I upload it. And so one of the benefits of this is that this field is only used by the export routine, which means that even though I upload data to TOPS from this field, I don't have to worry about it manipulating any data within TOPS because that value is discarded at import. So just something that really ensures that my data gets through. So now that we've gone through that, let's prepare to import. And so we're going to start from scratch, and then I will also show you how to use the template. And my hope is that if Lynn will provide that to you or make that available, and if not, you can always email me and I'd be willing to share that copy of that Excel file with you. And then we'll discuss a little bit more about populating the Excel file. So from scratch, so you open up Microsoft Excel, you get a blank worksheet, and you have all these nice cells there. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the first row of that row of that worksheet, and then that first cell we're going to put 1, and then we're going to go 1 through 19, and we're going to fill in at each cell a number. So the first cell in terms of A1, it's going to be number 1, and then in B1 it'll be number 2, and C1 is going to be 3, and so forth until we reach the number 19. In the second row beneath it, we're going to write the field names. So in A2, we will have vendor code because it is the first field. In B2, we will have state code because that is the second field. And for the third field, in C2, we will write agency ID and so forth. Once you have all that, okay, you're going to want to highlight and select all the cells in the worksheet, and then change the cell type from general to text. Again, the reason why we're changing it from general to text is to avoid having our preceding zeros or any of our numbers act differently than what we desire. So the way to do this is you're going to go to the ribbon, click on Home. Then you're going to look for Number, the Number section. And in the Number section, you'll see the word General. What you'll do is you'll click on that pull-down menu and look for Text and click on Text. That will make that whole region, and in this case, we're taking the entire worksheet and make it all text in terms of the type for the field. Once you have done this, save the worksheet as an Excel file. Now, depending upon what your preference are, you can save this as a .xls or a .xlsx. Okay, so assuming you have a copy of the template, what you're going to do is you're going to make another copy of this template, which will be called ELCA 000C-template.xlsx. And you're going to rename the 000C to whatever the COAP form code you have selected. So for example, if you selected COAP 17.2, just rename that to 172C. And that's just so that you can distinguish between, assuming you have more than one COAP that you're working with, between those COAP datas for those particular areas. So make sure that you have that separated and done that way. It will be much easier in terms of file organization and just accessing your data when you need to. Once you've done that, open the newly copied file in Excel. And the first two rows should be populated with that same information we just did in the from scratch section. So you should have the field sequence as well as the field names. And all other rows in there should be empty. So it should look something like this. So you'll see that row 1 has these numbers, and then row 2 has all this text in it. And those are that's your field sequence for row 1, and row 2 is your field names. And you'll notice that all the other area is blank. So now that we have our template, we have our Excel file, it's time to populate it with all that information that we've acquired from testing. And it's time to now put it into the Excel file so we can prepare to create that CSV file. To do so, we start from row 3. And of course, the row 3 is empty. And we type in the values for the required fields. So for required fields, so this is going to be field 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 6, 7. And we're also going to type the value needed for field number 19, which is that N. Okay, so remember, field 1 was the vendor code. So we'll put that vendor code in, and we'll put the agency code in, state code in, all these other fields. Once you have filled that first row with that information, you can then copy and paste that information all the way down to wherever you need to stop, whether it be at 50, 100, 200, 300, 1,000 rows, or because you're dealing with maybe 250, 1,000 students. So you want to be able to pull that down easily so that it's all filled, and the only thing you're going to focus on is the student ID and the test values, which will be entered manually into the fields, into those fields. If you have this information, the student ID and test value, on a separate spreadsheet in its own specific columns, and you have them in bulk, feel free to highlight and copy that over into the student ID field and the test fields. It's just much easier if you have it that way. If you don't have it that way, don't worry. You can just type it in and move and just go down row by row by row. So this is what it should look like. And once you've populated it, in this particular image, I have hid fields 8 through 14, just so that you can see what it actually looks like with all the populated, required, and needed fields. So in this case, the vendor code, state code, agency ID, site ID, and student IDs are filled. Assessment data is filled. Assessment form code is filled. Test 1 is filled, and also the consecutive estimate field is filled. Once you have filled all this, then you'll want to save the Excel file. So you'll just go up, File, Save As, and save this Excel file. Then we are now going to create that CSV file that's going to be used to upload into TE. To do so, we need to delete the first 2 rows. Okay, remember those first 2 rows has the field sequence numbering and also the field name. So we're going to delete those because in our CSV file, TOPS does not need that information, and it would actually cause an error should we have it. So what you're going to do is once those 2 rows are deleted, you're going to then go to File, Save As, and you're going to choose CSV, delimited *.csv, and then you're going to click on Save. Once you have done that, you have created your test data test CSV file. And now that you have that test CSV file, you're ready to import. So to import, all you need to do is go to Tools inside of TOPS, click on the third-party import wizard. Once you click on that third-party import wizard, a window will pop up. It's the introduction window, and this will give you all the basic information that you need to be aware of before you move on in terms of uploading your data. Once you have read this, click on Next at the bottom right-hand corner. You will then enter into the new import session. So typically, if this is, you're going to select the new import session option at the bottom left-hand corner. Once you have done that, you will then click on Next at the bottom right-hand corner. The Select and Import Type window will then open. In this window, you want to make sure that in the Format Set area, that WIOA import formats is selected. And from the 2 columns beneath of different options, you want to make sure that test data from a third-party system test is selected. When you have done that, you can then click on Next. And the reason why we select these is so that TOPS recognizes the CSV file that you're going to be uploading. When you get to the Select Import Third-Party Test Data window, you will then click on the Browse button at the bottom right corner, and you will go through your folders to find where you have placed that CSV file that you just created. And then you will select it, and it should show up right in the file name third-party test data area. When you see it there, you can then click on the Next button. Now you're in the Ready to Process Raw Data window. You want to make sure that the 2 options, the first and third option, are checked at the bottom left-hand corner, and that the center one is not. Also, just make sure that the import file name that you see at the top matches the actual file that you are planning to import. Once you have done this, click on Next. Now you're in the Raw Data Processed Third-Party Test Data window. Your data has now gone through a process in which TE has found that the data that you just submitted is valid, and therefore you may now continue. So please click on Next. You will then enter the Edit Records Third-Party Test Data window. Here is where you should be checking to make sure that the assessment form, the assessment date, and the test 1 data are there and are accurate, so that if there's any issues, you can go in and do any kind of modifications there, or you can exit out and take a look at your CSV file to ensure that it is correctly populated. So do make sure you use this opportunity to check your data before you click on next. Once you are certain that the data is accurate, click next. Now you're come to the ready to import third-party test data. So you're now ready to actually import your data into TOPS Pro. All you need to do is click on next. Congratulations. You have successfully uploaded your CSV file to TOPS Pro Enterprise. Whether it is a few, tens, 50s, hundreds, thousands of records, you have successfully uploaded them. And you should be now able to see them in each individual record of each individual student, have that information that they have tested for whatever EL Civics co-op they have tested for. Now you can just click on Finish to close out this window. So one final note as I conclude, it's important that you freeze your data by storing the Excel file and the CSV file in a specific folder for each program year. And to do this, you may want to use subfolders with the co-op form code as the name for that program year. For example, I give you the document /EL Civics /2021 and /466C. You definitely want to make sure that you freeze your data. Have this in either a shared location or in a secured location. You just want to make sure that you have that in the event that someone wants to come by and say, hey, can I take a look at it? Or if you need to refer back to it in terms of how you did it, or if you need to find that vendor code. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you have a secure place to store that information and to store it annually in such a way that it's easy to go back and retrieve it. This pretty much concludes how to use TE's third-party import wizard to upload EL Civics results. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at gllleos@pasadena.edu. My phone number is area code 626-585-3001. And again, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who allowed me to bring this information to you, and I hope that it will be useful and that you will be able to make your lives much easier. Have a great day.